So, page 455. Page 455. We have like this. We're talking about things here that are mafsid, right? That are mafsid the bitachon. And he was discussing the thing that when we attribute the immediate cause, the close cause, as the source of the reason for something. So we don't see behind it HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't. The real cause is way behind. I gave an example with the king and the lashes. You see the guy at the end who gives the malchus. You think he's the one giving the malchus, but really, he's just a shliach of the police, who's a shliach of the ministers, the governor, the shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's only ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu has that power. He could change the decree, be mevatel the decree. All these other people just got to do their jobs. So that's what we were talking over here at 455. The same is true in this world. All the difficulties that people suffer in this world are the result of Hashem's decrees. He carries out the decrees by means of a chain of intermediate causes that obey orders from the superiors. I'm in the middle of reading a book about, there was a very Adam Gadol in Europe, Mordechai Pergamansky, I think his name was. He was a very unique individual in the yeshiva world. And all through that Churban in Europe, he kept on saying, I just see psukim. I just see psukim. Right? I mean, because he lived with such a reality that everything's in the Torah, everything's in the Torah. So while other people were seeing the Nazis, Yamach Shabbat, and all these things going on, and whoever there might be, he didn't see that. He saw psukim. He saw a fulfillment of what it says in the Torah. The terrible things it says Torah. That's what we're talking about here. There are people who said, where was God in the Holocaust? He was the one. And I mean, it's very hard to accept it. But then when you open up the different teichachas in the Chumash and you read what's going on there, so you see that the Torah itself writes very harsh, very difficult, very unbelievable things that people could do and will do. So this is how that Gadol lived. He just said, I don't see Germans, I don't see this, I see psukim. He carries out the degrees by means of a chain of intermediate causes that obey orders from the superiors. Oh, so look, if the decree is for an individual to catch a cold, the order finally comes to the person in the form of germs. That's what gives me the cold. But the germs are not what cause the cold, it's the original decree. Therefore, if the individual turns to prayer to Hashem and has to be forgiven, the decree can be withdrawn. By the way, it's a mitzvah for a person to do all that he can to heal himself from it, and all that he can to avoid a cold. The cold, right? The Gemara says, "A cold b'deshmai chutz b'tzinim upachim." Tzinim upachim are colds, but he's not relating to that. I guess there's no question about that. But when it comes to understanding how actually effective his efforts are, nothing is effective except the original decree of Hashem. Right? One of the animamins. Animamun Shlema. Roy the Vader, Roy the Spalov, and Roy the Spalov Zulasa or something like that. That ultimately everything is from Hashem, and therefore, really, who should you be turning to? Is only a Kodesh Baruch. Let's see what is it. Shaboris Machshvay Loy Levader Roy the Spalov. Vein Zulasa Roy the Spalov. So, in a certain method, if you attribute to the medicines, to the doctors, certain koiches, certain abilities, so you're being mispalel l'zulasai, not to Hashem. Right? The Shulchan Aruch says that when you, excuse me, when you take medicine, you're supposed to say tefillah, but this should be the food. Right? It's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. This is just the end of that chain. This is just the tool he's using to heal you, not the medicine. So that's why you respond to her. Therefore, the first thing a person has to do, in addition to trying to help himself by medicines or preventive measures, to request directly of Hashem not to become sick. Right? The Gemara says a person should always be mispalel, that he shouldn't become sick. When you're sick, you should daven. All you have to do everything you can, such as avoiding people who are sneezing or shaking hands with people who have colds. The most important of all is to address yourself to Hashem before. When people are ignorant, they deal only with immediate causes. So they deal with the fact that there's germs. Not realizing that the far-off causes are much more powerful than the local. The ultimate far-off cause is Hashem, and the local causes are the germs. As to why praying to Hashem beforehand is more effective than praying after the person's already in the midst of the problem, because that's what the Gemara says, you should always daven before you're sick, that you shouldn't be sick. The answer is that praying beforehand when the person is still well demonstrates his trust in Hashem. When a person waits until he's sick, it's too late, and so he gets much less reward for that kind of trust.
But I thought we say in davening, Nerofe, right?
We say what?
Right?
Right.
By Shemona Esrei. Right? Isn't the Nerofe that the body continues to heal itself? We're asking that that good,
well,
that
it should be Hashem's decree.
state that the body
It should be Hashem's decree.
Continue.
I haven't heard that explanation. I'm happy you're sharing it. No,
I always thought that was shot at that.
No, it may well be shot. I don't claim to know everything. In fact, I don't claim to know much. If you'll heal me, I'll be healed. If anything, it's like I always thought it was the opposite. And I'm saying that my healing is only if you do it. But Adarabah, we're going to look around for other pshatim. Okay, uklolish l'davar. But before that, he says, when a rich man prays to Hashem to give him his daily bread, Hashem is pleased. When a poor man cries out, it's also good, but there's much less of a reward because he has no choice. But the rich man, at least superficially, has the food, and he still turns to Hashem. It's a much greater statement of his bitachon. The bottom line is it's important for people to pray at all times. So we have to direct ourselves to the king. Always speak to the king, because that's where all the decrees come. The general principle. That among those who have trust in Hashem, there will be an extra degree of trust according to the degree of knowing Him. That follows. The more you know Hashem, the more bitachon you can have in Him. And according to their belief in His guiding control, and the abundance of His protective care for their well-being. Right? The more, this is. The more you know Hashem, the more you live with Hashem, the more you live with His hashgacha. So then your bitachon obviously is greater. So when you know Hashem is interested in your benefit, and you know it's because you've studied it, then your bitachon will become correspondingly reinforced. Here's a little introduction to the next thing over here. The general principle stated above gives us a plan for overcoming the obstacles to be taught, especially the obstacle of Hashem's apparent remoteness. The more distant he seems from us, the more difficult it was to have true bitachon in him. Therefore, it's our mission to get to know in his ways as much as our power to do so. The last part of this chapter represents 10 levels of bitachon as interpreted by Chovos haLevavos. Each level corresponds to a stronger degree of trust based on a better understanding of our Creator. However, before presenting the 10 levels of trust, Miller shows the importance of this kind of study when compared to a simplistic approach. Miller identifies the simplistic approach as a Buddha Pshuta. As he interprets a Buddha Pshuta, Miller takes the view that this is not the approach most people should aspire to. And this is a very big machlokes. We referred to it earlier. Should you go with a Buddha Pshuta or should you delve into it and ask questions? The Mitzvah of the Chovos haLevavos is built not like that. Right? The whole Sefer that we've been learning is to develop it, to understand it, see Hashem. And so what do we learn here? This is what Rav Miller is saying. And in order to have bitachon, you must make sure all the foundations are there. That's why it's the shara, the fourth shara, right? Fourth. Actually, this is a contradiction to the popular attitude, even among religious Jews. They say that simple faith is all you need, rather than the elaborate logic of Chovos haLevavos with his arguments and proofs. There was a Rishonim by Spain, the Chochma Chosid Yavetz, and he writes that at the time of the Inquisition and stuff, it was the Pashut Jews who had simple faith that were able to last more than the philosophers, the Jewish philosophers that had, philosophized HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the bitachon. Simple Jews that didn't know any proofs, didn't know anything. They didn't just believe in God. They were the ones who stayed stronger. That's the argument for the Buddha Pshuta. They say that simple faith is all you need rather than the elaborate logic of Chovos haLevavos with his arguments and proofs. In truth, the Buddha Pshuta can be very effective if it's properly done. If parents inculcate children with a clear awareness of Emunah, it's likely to be effective, even though they don't tell them all the logical approaches to it. But suppose you weren't brought up that way, and your parents weren't brought up that way. You're just going to subscribe to bitachon by saying, I have Emunah Pshuta, you decide it's deceiving yourself. So it's not true. He is saying that there is such a thing as the Messiah, and when parents have that Emunah Pshuta, and they live with that Emunah Pshuta, it's a real thing for them, then they can pass it on to their children, and it's a very solid thing. Say, but let's say you don't have it, then you can't just say, I believe. Similarly, in almost every case, the devotedly observant Jew who talks about a good truth are only deceiving themselves. They don't have it. There are cases which parents always speak about Hashem, reminding the child that this candy or this piece of bread that I'm giving you actually comes from Hashem, our Father. After a while, it becomes implanted in the child's mind that Hashem is the giver. That's an achievement, but it's not a Emunah Pshuta at all. It's the result of chinuch. However, the Chovos haLevavos says there's nothing that can be compared to the conviction that a person gains in the course of intense study. In a matter of years, he gains an ironclad conviction that this world is under the supervision of a great and infinitely wise supervisor. Everything in the world teaches that great lesson openly. There's nothing in the world as clear as this lesson. Right? That's what we learned. That's what we've been learning. Of course, no matter how obvious the truth is, there are Rishonim, such as those in colleges and in the secular media, who try to avoid it with all kinds of lies and distortions. Once you've seen the truth, you know that what they say is ridiculous. All right, and he goes back to the Shara Bechina. Just look at a leaf. Anyone who studies a leaf with an open mind can immediately become the biggest believer in the world. Look at the design of an orange, colored on the outside and white on the inside. It only takes on the orange color after it's ripe. Then it's sweet and tasty. But before ripening, the green fruit is green outside and sour inside. How does it turn sweet? And what makes all that happen in every orange and every tree? If the atheists stood on their heads, they couldn't give a satisfactory answer. Everything's a miracle. Everything serves as a purpose. As we've been learning, I don't think it's much accepted anymore in the scientific world, Darwin and that whole theory of it. But as you study the world, it becomes ludicrous to believe in those things. Look at a seed inside the orange. A seed has no color because no color is needed in the seed. The meat of the orange is beautifully colored so as to make it attractive to eat, but the seed inside the orange has no color. Not supposed to have. And how does that happen? How does it happen? It's the same fruit. It's in the fruit. This has such an attractive color, and this is plain. It's remarkable. The orange is sweet, yet the seed is bitter. Why? To discourage you from eating it. Everything has a reason because everything in the world was designed for a purpose. Hashem doesn't want us to eat the seeds. Hashem wants us to spit out the seeds so that new trees will grow. So therefore, he made them bitter. Like, why should it be bitter? Any more bitter than the fruit itself? But no, because the seed is not meant to be eaten. Everything you see as actually a wonder of wonders, even these simple observations, demonstrate that when you're eating an orange properly, you can acquire bitachon. But you have to learn how to eat an orange intelligently. If you have never learned how to do it, life passes by and you walk in darkness. How many of us are deceiving ourselves and missing out on one of the fundamentals of creation, to learn to recognize that there's a creator? Okay, so now we're going to have 10 levels of bitachon. The nursing infant child at the beginning of its life, his bitachon, his trust is put on his mother's breasts. It doesn't know anything beyond that. His sustenance, everything comes from the mother's breast. As the pasuk says, you give me confidence on my mother's breast. The infant perceives the breast I feed him before he perceives his mother as a separate person who provides milk. He sees just the thing right in front of him. The second thing is, the child's understanding grows. Then he puts his bitachon, his confidence, from the breasts of which he nurses to his mother, because he begins to recognize her abundant care of him. It's not just the milk, it's the showering, it's the clothing, it's the cuddling. As it says, I swear that I have quieted and silenced my soul like a suckling child with his mother. Like the suckling child is my soul. Not sure what that means. But here it refers already to Gamul Alei Imai, on the mother. When his perception grows even stronger, he sees that he realizes that his mother is dependent on his father, who supports the family. He shifts his trust to him because he appreciates the value of his father's providing for him. When this child becomes physically strong and is ready to use his talent to earn his living, whether as a craftsman, a merchant, or the like, now he puts his trust in himself, in his skills, and his talents. Doesn't rely on the father anymore, the mother. He's now shifting it to himself. That he's capable, he's able to do it. The way Sichlusay Mukhal Shakoda, that's because he's ignorant of all that happened before him. B'toivas harogas akim through Hashem's benevolent control. Nothing that happened to him before was because of his ability. He wasn't born because of his abilities. He wasn't nursed because of his abilities. He still needs to understand that just as before, it was only because of the decree of Hashem that all these things happened. So also now when he's working and earning his own livelihood, the reason that he's successful is not because of his effort, only because of the decree of Hashem. Right? But the natural progression is that now he's going to put his trust in his own abilities. He had a neighbor who was a sefer, expert sefer. And he supported himself by his sifrus. One day, the chassid said to the neighbor, how are you? He answered, fine, as long as my hand's in good shape. That same evening, his hand was chopped off by accident. Like he was not able to write anymore. This was his punishment for replacing his trust. It was his punishment for Hashem because he placed his trust in his hand. The lesson is that although a person's hand seems to be doing his work, it's really the nearest of the causes, the most remote cause, which is the real cause is the one that has control over his affairs. And this is what he's explaining to us. The next level is, just 1 minute, my computer's going to die. Sorry. Okay. If it should happen, and he earns his living through other people, like he's an employer, he has an employer. So then he puts his trust in them. And it comes to rely on them. So again, he's making a mistake because he's placing his bitachon on the people. But when his perception grows stronger, and he looks more closely and sees their deficiencies and their need for help from Hashem, that they themselves need to trust Hashem. He realizes that the person is relying on won't live forever. He may lose his mind or change his mind. Therefore, he's a very weak support on which to depend. When that happens, so he shifts his bitachon to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When he relies on Hashem in the manners in which he has no control, from which he has no refuge except by Hashem's decree. So it says Ramila, now this guy hasn't reached full bitachon, he's still limited, but at least in matters of which he has no power, he trusts in Hashem. That it should rain after he plants. Crossing the ocean, even though it was very dangerous. Crossing deserts where there's no water, when there's a flood. A life-threatening epidemic. Here we go. Similar situations where a person has no means of control. The time of the distress, they say, arise Hashem and save us. So at least when in these situations, he has bitachon, he realizes that ultimately it's from Hashem. However, there's still reservation in his mind because he only relies on Hashem for what he knows he can't do. But when it's coming to his daily work and he's producing it, right, he still feels that he's in control. You know what? We'll stop here. I'm sorry. And
you sound much better, though.
What's that?
You sound much better, Baruch Hashem, than yesterday.
I do feel better. I still feel sick, but I feel better than I did even today. I could feel much better now than I felt today. Mitzvah Hashem.
We should have Refuah Shlema.
Amen.
See everybody Sunday, Mitzvah Hashem.
Okay.
Right,
Have
right.
a
Good
great
Shabbos,
Shabbos.
everybody.
Make a see maybe Sunday.
Okay.
Great. Shabbos, everybody.